Over to you now, Sandra. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, good morning, everybody. My name is Sandra Murphy, as the screen clearly tells you. I just tell you a little bit about myself and sort of give some context for my experience. I run a business helping small businesses, not dissimilar to Paul, who ran your session for you yesterday. In fact, Paul and I previously worked together at another company. Um, and the purpose of my business is to support the founders and key decision makers of micro and small businesses in running their businesses better, where better is defined by them. I started the company 10 years ago based on 30 odd years experience of working for or running small businesses, and have gone on to do so ever since. So, just one thing I want to say before we sort of get into all of this. I am mindful that when we're talking about pricing and when we're talking about the finances of a company, sometimes there are things that you do not want to share in a space, particularly in a space that's being recorded. My contact details are on the slide deck that will be sent out to you after the event. If there are questions that you would like to ask that you do not want to do, quite so publicly, please feel free to message me after the event, and I'll very happily, pick up with a quick phone call or quick Zoom call with any of you to cover, things that you feel are slightly more confidential. You don't want out there recorded for the world to see. So, cracking on, what we're going to cover today. We're going to look at some of the fundamentals, initially around understanding market needs, then looking at pricing foundations, models, tactics, credibility, and then we'll wrap that all up with the key takeaways. But just to really reiterate what Forbes has already said, pricing is about so much more than money. If we are trying to sell the wrong product or service at the wrong price to the wrong people, we are wasting our time. We are very, very unproductive. And so, understanding initially who your market is, who your competition is, what price your market will accept immediately makes you more productive. If you're selling to the right people at the right place through the right channels, it immediately makes your time and your work more effective. So, harsh truth, people don't really care. If they're being really honest, they don't really care about what we sell. They don't really care about what we do. What they care about is the solution that we provide for them or the problem that we solve for them. And we all go to networking events. And one of the first things we all say to one another is, oh, people who we're meeting for the first time, what do you do? If we went into a networking event and said to somebody, what can you do for me? We would be seen as, quite an unpleasant person, not necessarily somebody who we would want to form a stronger relationship with and maybe go on into, some form of working relationship with. But it's really, really important that in everything that you do, you are looking at things from the point of view of your customer, of your client, and understanding what problem you solve for them, what solution you provide for them. So essentially, what needs they have. And those needs, broadly speaking, can be functional, they can be emotional, or they can be aspirational. At a most functional level, my Hoover broke at the weekend. I need a new Hoover because my house is getting dirtier and dustier day by day. I've just got to go out and find a new one. Um, at an emotional level, emotional purchases are really interesting because actually, at the root of everything that we do, a purchase decision will be made on emotion. I think somebody has just put their hand up. Oh my goodness, how can we make money together? Wow, that's an interesting one. Now, for some reason, my screen has just gone to all my slides. I'm just going to stop sharing for a second and reshare again. Let me just have a look at this. Go back. Right, that's better. Forbes and I were talking only 2 minutes ago about how technology is either the bane of our lives or the best thing that can ever happen to us. Right, here we go. Yeah. So, functional, emotional, aspirational. In terms of emotional needs, be mindful that every single purchase decision underneath it will sit an emotion. If I'm in town and I want a cup of coffee, I will invariably go to an independent coffee shop rather than one of the chains because my business is all about supporting small businesses. It's about supporting the independents. It's about the values of my business. It's about what I represent. And the other the other area in particular where emotions kick in big time is where we are looking at things that create memories. Special occasions, we will spend more on a wedding gift, we will spend more on a 30th, 30th, 40th, 50th, 60th birthday present than we might on a 29th, 39th, or 49th. So think about the emotion that's sitting underneath the purchase decisions that people are making. And then finally, aspirational. Um, Aspirational, look at any brand, look at any well-known brand and look at how much money they put into adding value to their product through what it represents. Trainers, it's a shoe, it goes on your foot, you walk down the street. The differential in price for trainers, whether they are branded or unbranded, is massive. But there is something aspirational about I can afford top of the range, whatever brand is your preferred brand trainer. So, where do you fit in that? Are you aspirational? Are you functional? Are you an emotional purchase? Ultimately, your price needs to reflect the importance or the value of the problem that we solve for people. I want you just to take a couple of minutes to write down what you think are your top three customer needs and then rank them. Urgent, important, nice to have. And then I'm going to ask somebody, hopefully somebody will volunteer just to share that little bit of information with us. So just take a couple of minutes, not even that, 30 seconds, and think about what you think are your top three customer needs and why. And are they urgent, important, or nice to have? Anybody want to volunteer what they have written down? I can't see all of you, so I'm relying very slightly on Forbes to tell me whether or not anybody's putting their hand up here. If not, just take yourself off mute and shout. Anybody want to volunteer?
I'll go.
Daniel, brilliant. You're at the top of my screen. You're the person I was going to pick on if nobody volunteered. Well done.
I'm glad I was proactive then. Yeah, well, with me, because I run a learning development company, so I suppose to rank my three client needs, the first one I would actually say was kind of business development or client development. So it's basically equipping employees with the ability to actually just bring in more money to the organization. Secondly, I suppose there's kind of performance management, so helping managers, leaders to understand who's performing, how to deal with poor performance. And thirdly, just very generally, it's kind of skills development, upskilling people in sort of softer communication and influencing skills.
Yeah.
But I think that would probably be the ranking.
Yeah, yeah. And if we say, what is your business?
Learning and development, so training and coaching.
Yeah, okay. And that's very interesting because with all of those things, we are absolutely talking about pricing as it relates to productivity. And it's an interesting one at the moment with learning, development, and training. So the business development, performance management, skills development, all of that then ties into, recruitment, retention, the cost of a bad hire, And so there's lots of real problems that you can solve for people that are very, very tangible. We all know that the cost of a bad hire, depending on the level of the hire within the organisation, can run into thousands upon thousands of pounds. So getting things right at that level is really, really important, and I would hope adds a lot of value to the product or the service that you are taking to your market. Anybody else want to volunteer quickly? If not, we will move on.
I had a few myself. So I was thinking number one for me would be commercial robustness within their business. So I run a business that does digital change and transformation, mostly in aviation and construction. But I had to think of it
Very specific, yeah.
slightly differently, because sometimes as a sort of management consultant going into clients, they don't necessarily know what they need. So there's a bit of discovery that needs to happen. But ultimately, most clients are saying they need commercial robustness around their business. They need growth in terms of clients or revenue. And then the digital capability maturity sort of underpins that. So increase the maturity of their digital capability, they're able to be more commercially robust, and then they see growth in the business.
Yeah, excellent. And that's, with if we look at what's gone on in the economy, and I will talk about the economy, I will talk in some ways about the decisions that are made outside our control, whether it's through politics or other means. None of them intended as political comments, but it's really important that we all look at what's going on in the outside world. My experience so far this year is that people have been much more optimistic than maybe they were last year. And whether that's because they've got fed up waiting for the perfect trading conditions to arrive and have just decided it's time to crack on, I don't know. But it will be interesting to see whether or not world events, as have unfolded in the last week or so, will impact on that in some way. But yes, commercial robustness, very, very important. So, pricing foundations. Your price is what you charge. The value is what the customer thinks it's worth. So it comes back to, what can you do for me? What problem can you solve for me? What solution can you provide for me? And at the most fundamental level, there are sort of four things that we can take into account. Time. Do I need it now, or have I got time to browse? Let's go back to my Hoover. I need it pretty soon because the dust is piling up all around my house. Season. We just had Valentine's, we've just had Christmas. The next one that's coming up on the horizon is Mother's Day. And after that, we have Easter. So depending on the market that you're working in, and also just, when you're out and about, just look generally at, what's going to happen to the price of flowers again around, I think it's the 2 weekends time Mother's Day comes up. What happens to the price of chocolates, flowers, pretty much anything with a heart on it or pink, anything that's left over from Valentine's Day, it sometimes feels to me. It feels like, quick, let's see if we can now offload this. But seasonal sales are very, very important to all of us. The business that I run, I budget on a 10-month year. I work on the basis that most of my clients will not be around in August, and December is a 2-week month. And I always earn some money in August and December. It's never happened that, no money has come in. But in terms of managing my business finances, I look at the times when I think people will be around to buy from me, and I set my budgeting, I do my financial planning accordingly. So is your business seasonal? I think we've got somebody here who, I think we've got a nutritionist. I'm interested to know whether or not post-Christmas, where people make the New Year's resolutions to be fitter, to be healthier, to maybe lose 1 or 2 of those pounds that they put on over the Christmas period. I'm interested to know whether or not your business spikes around January. I don't know the name of the person who is the nutritionist. I don't even know if they're on the call.
Hello.
But if you're here.
Sophie.
Hello,
yeah,
Sophie.
Sorry, I didn't introduce myself at the beginning. I think I was a few minutes late. So good morning, everyone. I definitely find the same as you, Sandra. So I tend to find I'm really busy in January. So I actually spend a lot of my December kind of building up packages and things like that to launch in January, knowing that that's going to be a bumper month for me. And then in the lead up to summer as well is always a big one, because obviously everyone wants to look nice in the summer. But actually it tends to change depending on the client too. So corporates, they're always really quiet over summer, obviously because everyone goes on holiday, so they don't want to get a nutritionist in because it's kind of a waste of money for them. But for individual clients, it peaks again, just pre-summer. So definitely seasonal.
So you have two markets effectively, Sophie. You have a B2B market, and then you have a one-on-one market. It's really interesting. I'm going to come back to you, I think, at some point later on in this presentation and ask you to contribute a little bit more, because that's very, very helpful. So seasonal location, airports and service stations are a wonderful example of this. We all pay far too much for a bottle of water when we have gone airside at an airport and we're waiting to get on our flights because we are a captive audience. Service stations are the same on motorways. The price of petrol, diesel, etc., is always more expensive. So where are you selling? And how does that impact on the price that you can charge to your customers or to your clients? And finally, occasion. We've already talked about this very briefly, but weddings, birthdays, anniversaries, welcoming new babies into families, we can charge more in some cases because people it's then about creating memory and about creating legacy, and go back to the emotional need that we're then meeting. So have a look at this. So all of this will be sent out to you afterwards. Have a look at it in more detail in your own time and just see if you can identify where there may be times of the year where you could charge more, whether there may be locations that you can charge more, whether there may be occasions that people buy for that you can tap into. And the final thing about pricing foundations, you will all have heard about this thing called elasticity of demand, where small price changes can make big demand shifts. So supply and demand is a really interesting one. I'm, again, not a political comment, but I'm just going to, highlight with stuff that's going on in the Middle East at the moment. It's expected, that the price of oil has gone up since between the end of last week and the beginning of this week. I had a quick look online this morning. It suggests that oil prices have already gone up by around 8%. It probably won't affect us too much, but it depends on your supply line. If you're in manufacturing and you are importing goods, if the goods that you produce need oil to create them in their manufacturing process, just keep an eye on it and see what's happening. Reach out to your suppliers and ask them what they think is going to happen to their pricing in the next month or two, depending on what happens externally. And the external stuff we've got no control over. There's nothing we can do about it. But it's really important that you keep an eye to external events and just see what else is going on in the world. Is there any questions that anyone's got on that slide before we move on?
Can I just ask a quick one?
Of course.
How do you deal with it? I suppose for me, when I've got my individual clients, say I kind of moved my pricing up at those particular times of year. If a client comes to me and says, oh, but I saw 6 months ago your pricing was XYZ, or maybe their friend referred them and they had a certain price, how do I deal with that question? Because it kind of seems, I guess, as an individual, it doesn't seem that ethical. I know obviously it's a business and it's not all about that. Yeah. I don't mind so much with corporates charging different prices, but when it's a person, I don't know, it feels a bit, I don't know, immoral.
And it's really interesting. It's a really, really, really good question, and it sort of cuts across two really interesting points. One is that if we set our prices too low because we want to get that business, and then we are referred by that client to somebody else, and we want to charge a higher rate, they're instantly going to say, but my mate told me that you only charge blah. Why are you charging me more? So be really, really careful at going in too low just to get the business. It's much, much harder to put our prices up if we have started at a low base because we just want to get the business. But I think, in answer to your question, Sophie, sometimes honesty is, actually there is, I'm very, very busy at the moment. There is much greater demand on my time at the moment. And therefore I've adjusted my pricing to reflect that. People have a choice then whether or not they engage with us. But I think honesty and transparency is all that you can do. There's not really any other sort of way of sugarcoating that apart from I do a really good job. I'm really in demand. Therefore, my prices have been adjusted accordingly. I'd still love to work with you, and thank you for coming to me. Yeah, but be very careful of the reverse of that. Be really careful, everybody, about setting your prices too low because you just want to get the business. It's really hard to put your price back up again. So any other questions on that? No. Okay. Pricing models. This is a really interesting one, and it's most likely, if you are in a service industry, that you may employ more than one pricing model. Time-based, simply the billable hours. We see this an awful lot in professional services. The accountants, the solicitors, etc., etc., etc. And when I work in those sectors, I do say to people, and it applies to my business as well, that I need to be really careful that I don't put my customers, my clients off contacting me when they have a problem because they're worried about how much it's going to cost them. The solicitors who I work with, all too often, people come to them when something has gone wrong. And to a certain extent, that's too late. Then, yes, your legal bills are likely to be quite hefty. I see this a lot particularly with the employment lawyers who will say, actually, the problem is that they should use our HR services as well, because we could have stopped this situation happening if proper HR policies and the culture of the company have been different. But actually now, my client has ended up with, constructive dismissal, an unfair dismissal claim against them. And so, but we don't call on that expertise because we're worried about how much it's going to cost us. So for myself, I try really hard not to go by billable hours. I say to my clients, I will charge you X amount of money per month. For that, we will have, however many face-to-face meetings we will have in a month. But I'm also working on the basis that you will call me in between meetings. If something happens, you'll call me. And I then say, and obviously if we're on the phone on Zoom to one another every day for 5 hours a day, I'm going to have to reserve the right to increase my prices. But I encourage people to engage with me as and when they need to. And it works. They trust me. They do come to me outside of those meetings, that my pricing has been, set up according to that. Sometimes I will have my clients will say to me, I need help on a particular thing, and I will estimate how much of my time they're going to need, and I'll just do it on a project base. This is what I'm going to charge you to achieve this outcome for you. It will just be done as a project. Value-based, it's particularly relevant in sales environments, linking to outcomes, particularly commission or bonus schemes. And then finally, subscription models. So you sign up to my service. Again, Sophie, I'm going to pick on you. I suspect this could work for you, that, you rather than just engaging with me for one session at this price, engage with me for, 6 or 8 or 10 sessions, and it will be marginally cheaper, particularly if you pay me up front, because that's good for your cash flow. Recurring revenue and subscriptions are really, really important if you are looking to if you're trying to create a saleable asset for your business, if you're looking to the future where you might want to exit your business. Recurring revenue really helps increase the value of your business, because somebody coming in knows that they have a certain amount of income to bring them into the business, to help them establish themselves as the key point of contact with your clients. So any questions on any of that? No? Okay. So, little discussion in that case. Which model from that previous slide, so time-based, output-based, value-based or subscription, which model fits with your business now? Where does this fit with your financial objectives? And looking at an alternative model, how could this open new opportunities for us? Anybody like to kick that discussion off? I'm going to keep flitting between these two slides to remind you of what the question is, or the questions are, and what the four models are. But anybody like to contribute to that discussion?
We actually, yes, I can start. In terms of the model, and I wish I could say, yes, there was just one strategic model that we stuck to very sort of clearly, and that was, but we probably use all of them in different ways, depending on our clients. We're very client servicing. As I introduced yesterday, I'm a co-owner of a public relations and communications company specializing in healthcare comms. And we have a real balance. And actually, that does work for us because we have quite a number of retained clients. So I guess that comes into your subscriptions model you're talking about. And that, of course, gives us that sort of security, that foundation. We sort of always know we've got, well, always until client goes. But generally, if the client's happy, we've got that sort of guaranteed income. Because we're independently owned, we can be quite agile, unlike some sort of big agencies, and that's a sort of a pro and con. But we can be agile and we can take on smaller launch. People might come to us, they want to launch of a company, they want to work on a project. And as actually said, Sandra, that is, I mean, we know we've done this for a long time now. We know what our daily rate is. We have a sort of daily rate because a lot of clients do demand a daily rate. And then, of course, you have to explain it doesn't exactly work as a daily rate. That is sort of divided out across the week. We don't just sort of spend one day a week doing it. What we really don't like doing is really sort of breaking it down to hourly rates. That works very well, as you'll know, for solicitors, for lots of people like that who actually literally bill by the hour. But for us, we like to sort of see the bigger picture a bit more. What is the project? Come to us for a project. Ideally, tell us what your budget is. I mean, that is so rare now. It always used to be that clients would come to you with a lovely brief with their budget and you can work to it. But now it's a guessing game. Tell us what it will cost us, which is always a bit, but that's the norm. So so working to a project can also really work where you've almost got a sort of beginning with lend. We will deliver this for you. It will cost this. And of course, as an agency, we'll always overservice them and always do more than to get the result. But so I guess in a long-winded way of saying, in our agency, it certainly works to have a few different models that we fit to the client's needs and the client's budget, I guess, really. But yes, in the ideal world, it would be lovely to have lots of big retainers that are just rolling on all the time because there you know where you are then, don't you? So it's
yeah. And do you mind me asking, when you're doing your financial planning, do you split that down into, over a year, we expect this amount of income to come through retainers, this amount of income to come through projects, we expect to have X many projects at X value?
A little bit. I mean, we certainly work to a month, we know sort of month by month, and that's just us having done it for a long time. We sort of try and it's quite a nice target to go to. We know exactly what we need to be billing every month, really. That should be our goal, and of course we always want to try and exceed that. And you're right, we do plan quite well, not plan, you can have a plan, but we do monitor it closely, so we will know at any one time, hopefully for 6 months at a time, what we've got in guaranteed. And you're right, what we are sort of, because we have to be a bit careful as a small agency what we want to pick up. So sometimes if lots of little projects come up, that means that you may not be servicing your bigger retained. So we always have a balance of like, well, we could pick up as much as possible, but we've got to make sure it's, so we do have goals, if you like, of what we sort of should be earning and where there's a gap, and we think, well, we could definitely do a few more projects, or we're slightly at capacity. So it's, yes, there is perhaps not so much planning, but certainly monitoring. We've always got our eye on it, what the balance is looking like at any one time. So
Okay, that's very helpful though. And the other thing that you said there was about which is really important, is this thing, getting a good client brief, because that's the point at which you can really drill down into what are your needs, what solutions am I providing for you, what problems am I solving for you. And there is nothing worse than a really vague and wishy-washy brief from a client, which is it's sort of leading all of us down the wrong path to start from, because
it really is. It's a waste of everyone's time, because they can but it's just the norm. We've come to sort of work in that framework now, and it's not just us, it's other agencies that we meet and network with, or friends we know in agencies. It's just the norm, and it's you know, because you can come to us with a brief of what they want to achieve. Great, you sort of get that. And it's like, well, how long is a piece of string really? Because we could do all sorts of events and this and that. But actually, if you're then going to turn around and say, well, we've got 1,500 quid, then we can't do anything with that. So you might as well, even a ballpark. But I think a lot of clients want to sort of see what could we get, or could we stretch the budget? Or it's when they come in and say, can you give us a gold, silver, bronze? What could you do for? And it takes a lot of time to do proposals when you're really having to break it down. But again, it seems to be at the moment, the client seems to have or potential clients seem to have quite a lot of bartering power that way. But yeah, I just don't think it's probably the best way to go around it. But it seems to be at the moment the pattern that a lot of clients, certainly in our industry, are sort of playing with. So.
Yeah. And this thing about gold, sort of gold, silver, bronze, we're going to touch on that in a minute.
Oh, good,
good.
That'd be interesting.
I'm going to ask Sophie to contribute at that point about the packages that she said she was building, but that's in a slide or two's time. Anybody else want to contribute to that? This thing about which business model or pricing model can work for your business. Anybody else got any ideas or questions?
I think for me, it's a similar thing. I think is what Joe said. It depends on the client. It depends on the particular opportunity. Sometimes, because I was saying earlier that lots of clients don't necessarily know what they need. So if I went and priced what they need, that would, put them off straight away at first conversation. So there's usually the what they call it, the sprat to catch the mackerel type thing. So there's always a little piece up front and discovery that could be done either. And sometimes the clients say, okay, what's a day rate? Or it's a lump sum, really small piece of work. And then that opens them up to seeing the value that they can get from the bigger piece. And then we go.
Do you charge for that discovery time?
There's two ways. So usually I would do an initial sort of first day, kind of half a day ideation session. That's usually the free bit. And then post that, the discovery, the full-on discovery going into the organization, that'd be depending. It could be like a week's work. So charge for that.
The reason I asked the question, there's a company that I'm working with at the moment. They're essentially their web development and pay for advertising. And in the early stages of us working together, we went through the process that they follow for client acquisition. And we talked about what they were doing on their discovery. We literally broke down and looked at what they were doing on the discovery sessions that we were doing, that they were doing. And so they would do the discovery session. They would then feed back from that discovery session to their clients or they were prospective clients at this point about what they thought they needed. But when we really drilled down into it, we came to the conclusion that there was value in that discovery session already, and that it couldn't, that they were already providing their skills and their expertise, and that some value had to be associated with that. And they were slightly unsure at first about, I don't know. And anyway, they did adopt this idea that, we'll come and we'll do a discovery session with you. This is what you'll get from it. And this is how much we're going to charge for it. And they haven't had any kickback on it, or, maybe one or two, but nothing major. But again, it came as a thing of never devaluing the expertise and the skills that you are taking to people. And in service industries, particularly when we've worked in our given field for a long time, sometimes we forget how much knowledge we have, because we think, this is obvious. I've been doing this for years. It's obvious to me. Surely other people know this too, but they don't. And so my challenge to anybody who's working in the service industry is, yes, you have to give a little bit away. You have to drop the hooks to see who's going to who you can catch to have those deeper conversations. But be very careful that you're not giving away too much too soon that actually has a value to it. So, thank you. How do I pronounce your name?
Emeka.
Emeka, thank you, Emeka. That's it's a really useful point that you've made. Anybody else want to chip in or?
Yeah, Sandra. Hi, it's John Taylor here. I've just joined the
Hello,
call.
John.
Hi, sorry for being late. I just was on
No problem.
another conference call. But yeah, I completely agree with everything that's been said. I run a consultancy that's focused on the Middle East. I mean, I have my ideal customer profile, but frankly, it's very difficult for me to just to get the kind of clients that can afford my day rate, frankly, up front. And if I want to work with exciting startups, so what I do is I actually screen. I probably turn away 80% of the stuff that crosses my desk, and you might go, "Wow, that's brave." But to be honest with you, I have to. I don't do it in a rude way, but I just pass it to somebody else who I think might fit better. But I have, and I'm kind of going to contradict myself here. I do have a flexible approach to pricing, and if I like the product or the service enough, the business that I'm working with, I really truly believe it's got some followers. It could still be pre-revenue, but fundamentally, I can see a gap for it in, say, the Gulf markets, or particularly the Gulf markets. I'm not exclusively on the Gulf, but I've had 30 years living and working in that region and speak Arabic. I will do it I have done one client on a no-win, no-fee basis. So I've then taken quite a large chunk of the resulting sales win off the back of that, like 40%. But I also take equity. I've actually worked with a couple of startups where I've said, look, I'll do this for 10% of your business, a bit like sort of a junior Dragon's Den kind of model, without actually giving money, but just giving my time and expertise. But and on the flip side of that, I'm working with I've got law firms, American law firms that are partner billings are close to $2 million per partner, and I'm charging them full charge out rates, for my time, both hourly and daily, and it just ticks and ticks and ticks. But they're bluebirds. They come in once in a blue moon. So thank you.
Thank you, John. And I think also it's really useful to share that it is okay to say no to people. We have the right to say no to people, and very often we have to say no to people because they're just not the right ones for us. But that comes back to understanding your target market, understanding what their needs are, and understanding where you can provide value, or provide a solution, or provide some sort of answer for them that they need. I think we're almost at, let me have a quick look. That's quite a big slide. Okay, I think we're going to take our break just a couple of minutes early. So according to my phone, it is 10:41. So if we could all be back for a 5-minute break, back by 10:46. I don't want to start the next slide because it's quite a meaty one. So, grab a cup of tea, have an H break if you need one, and see everybody back in 5 minutes.
Yeah, do you want us to stay on, Sandra? I was going to say, just want us to turn cameras off, or should we leave?
Entirely up to you. Entirely up to you.
I would switch off your cameras and put yourselves on mute, and then we'll come back about 10:48. 10:48.
Okay.
Go again.
Marvellous. Okay. Cool. Brilliant. So before we move on, there is just one more thing that I wanted to pick up on. It's something that Joe said about the amount of time it can take to write proposals. You use that magic phrase, it's just a waste of time. And that comes down to the whole purpose of this session is about pricing and productivity. A lot of people who I'm talking to are using AI more and more to pull together proposals, and are saving a great deal of time on that. I suspect all of you are already engaged with that, but if you're not, there is another session coming up. Forbes will give you the exact date in 2-3 weeks' time, Forbes, that looks at AI and productivity. So do engage with that as well, because I think you'll all find it very helpful.
2 weeks' time.
2 weeks, thank you. So let's move on. Pricing tactics, and how does this impact on our profitability? Sophie, I want to ask you something. So the top thing there is bundling or tiered offers. And we see this a lot. You buy a duvet cover. If you buy the fitted sheet and the pillowcases to go with it, we'll give you, 10% off. We'll give you whatever percent off we're going to give you. Where we say buy one product from us or buy one service from us, bolt these extra things on. If you bought each individually, it would come to this amount, but if you buy them all together, we'll give you a little bit of a discount on it. Sophie, when we were talking about seasonality, are you back in the room? I can't see you, unfortunately. You are fabulous. When we were talking about seasonality, you said that you spend much of December sorting out your packages. for January. Could you expand a little more on that for us, please?
Yeah, so I guess my kind of basic offering would be to have an initial consultation, and then I always make people sign up for a follow-up. So I won't just give you an initial because I want to see how you're getting on and tweak the plan, etc. And when I do the packages, I actually make people sign up to kind of, it's either a 2-week, a 4-week, or an 8-week check-in, where they get kind of unlimited. I feel like I do need to rein this back a bit, but unlimited contact with me. So whether that's over text message, but I actually found this January that was slightly annoying because people are texting me all the time, asking me, "Oh, can I eat this apple?" or "Is this pasta going to make me fat?" So I definitely need to kind of rejig that, I think, for my summer offering. And so that's kind of for my individual clients. And then for my corporate clients, I often try and get them to kind of sign up to a series of talks. So rather than just doing a one-off event for them, I like to come in kind of on a monthly basis and have an hour's talk with them each month on a different topic. But then that also leads to loads of individual clients as well. So yeah, so I guess that's not really a package thing, but it's just a different pricing strategy.
It's sort of crossing over between these sort of bundling or tiered offers and introductory versus long-term pricing tactic that we can use. We see bundling an awful lot in, I see it predominantly in household goods. Buy this, we'll add this on. I see it as well with the client that I've talked about who is in sort of web development and the paid advertising space. They use it as well. That, if you get us to do your new website for you, and then you also stay with us because we're going to do your website maintenance, and then you're also going to stay with us and we'll do your paid for advertising, that they will be quite clear about what each of those bits would cost individually and actually what you'll get that if you commit to us for the next 12 months on a retainer. Introductory versus long-term pricing. We see this a lot with, I think one of the best examples of this at the moment is, the the sort of coffee machine. I don't drink coffee. I'm a tea drinker. I don't drink coffee. So it's a bit of a whole foreign world to me. But you buy the beautiful coffee maker that looks as if it's not terribly expensive. And you buy the little pods that you need to put in it. And then you find you're absolutely tied into buying those little pods because they're the only ones that will fit your coffee machine. And actually, when you go for the next purchase, they're much more expensive. But you're tied into it now because you bought the coffee machine that will only take pods that are a certain shape and size. The reverse of that can also work. That one of my clients who is in the consumer healthcare market, the initial cost of buying a product from them is quite high, but they then say to their clients, every time you come back to us and buy another of these items from us, we will give you a discount on it, and this is a lifetime discount. So they are looking at a loyalty incentive and looking at introductory versus long-term pricing, and then bring a loyalty incentive into that. Loyalty incentives we see everywhere all the time. We all have reward cards, loyalty cards by the dozen. Some of them are digital, some of them are not. I don't even know how much we all use some of them these days because it's a case of remembering to take them. So the ones that are digital that are on my phone, whether it's my Sainsbury's loyalty card, my Tesco loyalty card, my Boots loyalty card, whichever one it is, if I can put it on my phone, it's a value to me. If I've got to remember to take it with me, it's not. So if we're looking at loyalty incentives, how easy is it for people to redeem those? Is it really a value, or is it simply a perceived value? And if we make it very difficult for people to redeem incentives that we offer to them, what impact is that going to have on our relationship with those clients and how trustworthy, how credible they believe us to be? Dynamic pricing, we see a lot around. We see it in the airlines. We see it for concerts, sporting events. There was a lot of disappointments, I think is probably the best word to describe it, around the Oasis concerts last year. It will be really interesting to see what happens with the World Cup in America this year. There's a lot of criticism that prices are far too expensive, but at the moment there's apparently, ticket sales are not going where they want them to. So what will happen with that in the future, I don't know. Dynamic pricing, it's sort of, it's really the thing that we were talking about earlier, about if our product or our service is in greater demand, we should charge more for it. But we then need to go back to those basic questions that we started with, of what solution are we providing? What price can our market bear? At what point will people say to us, actually, you're not worth this amount of money? So being aware of our competitors' pricing, being aware of what our clients, our target market will bear, is really, really important when we are using dynamic pricing, because there will come a point at which people will just say no, and you need to be aware of what that is. Anchoring, a high price alternative gives perceived better value. It was £200, now it's £100. The only thing I would say about this is, do remember that if you're going to advertise a price of having been 200 but now 100, you have to be able to evidence that you did at some point offer that product or service for £200. Otherwise, you will put yourself in contravention of trading standards and requirements. But it is something, we all like to feel that we've got a bargain, whether it's something that's 200 or 100, or 10,000 down to 9,000, or £10 down to £8. We all like to feel that we've got a bargain. But how does that fit with our financial objectives? What impact does that have on our profit margins? And if we are looking at anchoring, have we written that into our profit margins? Charm pricing, £99 feels better than 100. It's just psychological, and everybody does it. We all know why people do it. It works. I'd say the same actually about loyalty incentives, and the reason why we see so many of them is because they do work. They can become a bit irritating, but people continue to use them because they work. And then finally, framing, save or pay £20 a month, rather than this is my cost, it's £240 a year. Spread the load for people and make it feel more accessible. But again, depending on the business that you are in, if you have an outlay of £100 for something that you are looking to recoup £240 on, and you are only getting £20 a month, you need to be into month 6 before you're even breaking even. How does that work with your cash flow? Does it put your company at risk? So lots of different tactics that we can employ. Back to you again. Anybody like to chip into the conversation here and either ask questions or tell us about things that they have used that have worked well, or things that they would never use again because they haven't worked so well?
It's interesting. Oh, sorry, go on.
No, go on, you go, Vicky.
Yeah, it's just interesting to think about the charm pricing aspect, isn't it? Because I'm guilty of I'm an HR consultant. My first client a few years ago, I literally plucked a number out of the air, something that I thought they'd go to, and then instantly regretted it and had to go back in 2 years later and say, actually, now I need to put my prices up. And all my clients are on slightly different rates. And I think, unfortunately, in the past, I haven't been brave enough to say, actually, no, this is what I need to charge, because this is the right price for the right work, rather than something that I think might attract them or feel as like a good deal.
Yeah.
Because one of my clients who I absolutely love, I've been working with them for 3 years though now. And at some point next year, I'm going to have to give them a price increase. And I've done it once before and that was okay, but I can't do that every 6 months.
No, although it's interesting that you do. I'm just going to share another story here. This goes back a number of years when I worked with somebody, and he came to me saying, I'm always busy and I never have any money. I just never have any money in the bank. It's a story I hear quite a lot. And so we worked together, sort of, looking at what, target market, what you're really providing, purpose of the business, all of those sorts of things. But then we got into the nitty gritty of his pricing. And essentially he had 80% of his business coming from one person, which is a really, really, really dangerous place to be to start with. My golden rule is never more than 15% coming from any one person, because if they go and if 80% of your revenue comes from one place and they go, they take you with them. And that's not where you ever want to be. So no more than 15% coming from any one person is my rule of thumb. But he was very, very dependent on this one particular client, and the work that he did, it required machinery, which required petrol. He had labour, and the people who would go out and do the work for him. And he hadn't put his prices up, like you, in over 3 years. And so we drilled down into how much it was costing him now compared to when he set his prices. Petrol had gone up, the cost of maintaining his machinery has gone up, the price of labour had gone up a lot. And it became very obvious very, very quickly that every time he worked for them, he was losing money. So no surprise that he was constantly busy but having no money in the bank. And, he was a really lovely guy, very unassuming, very humble, but actually to the point that he didn't value what he was doing. And so we worked through all the numbers. I said, you need to put your prices up by 30%. And he absolutely balked at this. And so we haggled around it for a while and settled on 25%. But his fear was, he was saying to me, but what if they say no? And I was like, honestly, if they say no, they're doing you a favour, because you are literally losing money every time you work for them. And so he went to his client, he said to them, I need to put my price, I haven't put my price up for over 3 years, I need to put them up, and I'm putting them up by 25%. And they went, yeah, sure, no problem, because they knew that he was undercharging them. But very rarely will somebody come to us and say, I think you're undercharging me, please put your prices up. They will wait for us to do that. They may assume that we have found ways of improving our own productivity, maybe through technology, and therefore we're still happy with the margins we're making. But no one's ever going to come to us and say, please put your prices up for me. So looking at your pricing, understanding how much time you spend on any one client, one project, one service that you provide to them, and then relating that back to your financial objectives is absolutely essential when you're working out your pricing. And again, it comes back to the point that Joe made, that if we're not pricing stuff properly, we are literally wasting time. We are being really, really unproductive. So anybody else like to chip in about a pricing tactic that they have used or have thought about using, would like to share? Daniel?
Yeah, I quite often, and it goes back to what we were talking about earlier in terms of sort of time-based, output-based subscription. I quite often with clients will sort of use the economy of scale argument. So I'll say, if you just ask me to do one, I never charge by the hour. It's always the minimum a day rate. But I'll say, if you just want me for 1 day, it's going to be X. You actually commission me to do 10 days for you, it'll be Y per day, and obviously Y being cheaper than X. I mean, I also sometimes with existing clients basically say, if you save me the hassle of writing proposals and pitches, I'll give you a built-in discount because I'm saving time on writing that proposal and pitch. You just automatically give it to me, don't put it out to tender. I'll give you a discount.
Yeah. And as long as you're, as long as both you and your client are really clear on the brief that you are working to, on the outcomes that they want and how you will achieve them. I agree with you. You can spend. I don't send lengthy proposals to people. So
And
I've got a one pager, and I tinker it and it goes out, but I don't spend hours because
and I think going
it
back
doesn't provide extra value.
Yeah, and actually going back to a previous conversation, I actually learned, well, I mean, I've been going for 19 years now on my own. And when I first started, my proposals could be 10 pages long.
Yeah.
And they were Word documents, really detailed. I mean, now it's just a one-page email, just like you. And I actually found that sometimes I was giving far too much information away. You know, I would actually describe how I would deliver a training program and then find out they'd basically taken my design and done it internally. So actually, I actually found, you know, less was more. It saved me time, and obviously it didn't give too much, you know, IP away.
Yeah. John, you've got your hands up?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Sandra. Yeah, I don't know what the mix is of the people on the call today. I think we're all sort of business advisors, consultants, experts in our field. And what I've tended to do, I think I might have just touched on it before we had the coffee break, was, you know, taking some skin in the game. So in lieu of fees, I used to operate on retainer models where I'd I'm sure many of us are familiar with that, where you charge yourself at a day a week, or you do 5 days a month. But to be honest with you, it never worked out very smoothly. Whereas I took on more clients, so it was putting pressure on the ones I'd already had. So I sort of moved that model towards much more project-based work with fixed start dates and fixed end dates and very clear outcomes and deliverables and all the rest of it. And yes, I sometimes offer discounts, but I tend to do an annual price rise, to be honest with you, because if I've been working with a client, hopefully the results I've generated with them justify the price rise in the first place. And I haven't had too much pushback on that. You know, to Vicky's point earlier, I mean, I just raised my fees in January, my standard day rates by 30%. And nobody's kind of like gone, shit, why the hell is he doing that? So I mean, I guess I've been lucky with the clients that I've got, to be honest with you. But yeah, I think getting skin in the game is also quite good, whether that's equity or, you know, it's kind of payment in lieu. I sometimes take, you know, commission on. So if we're in business growth mode and we're helping our clients grow, well, you know, we could link it towards business that we help them generate, you know, and I do sometimes take those models, you know, over primary referrals that I've introduced clients to. You know, I'll take 10% for, you know, 2 years or whatever, or 15% over 18 months, whatever it may be. So yeah, sort of horses for courses really. But the retainer model for me was not a successful one. Just very, very difficult to manage my time. Thanks.
Yeah. And you know, it's an interesting one. When you know, when I think also the longer we do things, the more experienced we become, and the better we know our market, the easier it is to get our pricing right. And you know, I've been doing this for 10 years. I was running small businesses for years and years before that. But, you know, particularly I can go into potential client meetings now and I can work out pretty early on in a conversation, if somebody decides they're going to work with me, whether or not they're going to be one of those people who's on the phone to me every day, or they're going to be that person who I will only hear from once a month. And my pricing will be, you know, set accordingly, assuming that they are the right person to you know, for me to work with. So it comes back to all the time, know your market, know your client, really, you know, take the time to dig into what problems they have, what needs they have, and what value you can provide to them. If we've got time, which I think we probably will have, we're doing very well for time. There's something I'm going to share with you which isn't in the deck, but it's just something that helps us identify the needs that people, the things that people actually think about when they're buying from us. But I'm going to move on through this, and then I will hopefully have time to share that with you at the end. Unless there's anything else anybody wants to add at this point around pricing tactics.
I've got a particular problem that's frustrated me for years, in that I'm in a very much more aggressive market in terms of pricing, and I want to maintain my trust and ethics in not suggesting a figure to take an instruction on a property. I'm an estate agent, and so I like personally the guide price because it seems more honest, rather than trying to hook a client in on a high asking price, knowing full well they're never going to get it. Then you negotiate down, and that's the market I compete against, and I find it very difficult, being honest, just losing the instruction to somebody who just looks at the price.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And we're going to come to, I think this takes us really nicely into, actually, it's the one after that, this thing about building price credibility. So I think I'm going to do the slides out of order because it picks up really nicely on the point that you've just made, Richard, about building price credibility. And, you know, first and foremost, it's about believing in our value. It's about linking prices to outcomes that we can achieve for people. Transparency builds trust. I think with the market that you work in, Richard, so much of it is done on word of mouth. If I was looking to put my house on the market, I live down in Brighton. There are certain, estate agents down here I would go to, and there's others I wouldn't. And one of the ones I wouldn't, obviously I will not share names at this point, but one of the ones I wouldn't is the people I bought the house from, because they were just rubbish, absolutely rubbish. And I wouldn't trust them to do a good job for me. And so this thing about how we build our reputations and how we build our credibility, and the use of stories and testimonials that support our brand value and our market offer. We've all had people say to us, oh yeah, I would go to so-and-so who's an estate agent, a plumber, an electrician, whatever it is. They are not the cheapest, but they will do a good job for you. And the more we go into a world where we do not understand the mechanics, cars and garages where we have to take our cars to when they go wrong. I know nothing about cars, so I have to trust the people I take my car to, absolutely, because they can tell me anything is wrong and I have to believe them. I've got a problem with my roof at the moment. The guy who's coming around to sort it out for me, he's worked for half of my street and he's worked for me in the past, and I trust him. And so your thing about the people overpricing because you want to get the job when you know it's not realistic. There will be some people out there who will go, no, I just want the highest price possible. And there will be agents who'll go, yeah, I can get that. But there will also be people who will have done a little bit of research for themselves. And so saying to, your clients, look, these houses are the ones that have sold at this price in this area in the last 6 months. It's really unlikely you're going to get that level, because that is not what the market is paying at the moment. It's quite a volatile market at the moment. House prices in some areas are still increasing and others are dropping. So it's about that thing, isn't it, of evidencing your knowledge and your expertise to build price credibility. I'm going to go back to the pitfalls I want to avoid, and then we will come back to that slide that we briefly looked at and go through any questions you may have. But pitfalls to avoid. We have talked a lot about competing only on price already, but I'm just going to go back through it a little bit. The people who can successfully compete on price are the people who can guarantee volume of goods sold. So probably one of the best possible examples, it's somebody like IKEA. We see it a lot in the supermarkets as well, but IKEA, they do not say to people, I will provide great customer service for you. They do not say all our goods are, handmade by artisans. They're really, really transparent about what they're selling and the price they're selling at is at. And they are selling on value for money. They're not selling on aspiration. They're selling on function and to a certain extent emotion, but they are not selling on aspiration. If we go back to the needs of the very, very first slide. So be clear about what it is that you are selling on. Rolls-Royce 2 years ago sold more cars in the UK than they have ever done in their history. Last year, they sold less cars than the previous year, but they made more money because they were able to sell a higher specification of cars with add-ons. So there's a whole load of stuff in that around aspirational pricing, around bundling, etc., etc., etc. And Rolls-Royce are a very, very specific example. But for all of us, competing on price alone is a dangerous place to go. If you know that your competitors are charging a lot less than you, do a bit of competitive research, find out what you actually get for your money. And if they are giving exactly the same as you for a lower cost and providing as good value as you are for a lower cost, you've got a problem. You then need to look at, you need to go back to your own company and you need to do an analysis of what you're really great at and what you can improve. Because if you take those two things, what I'm great at, what I need to improve, you can identify what gives you the edge over your competition. So move away from competing on price, compete on the value that you bring to people, the need that you meet, the problem that you solve. Discounting without strategy is really, really dangerous. It's the fastest way to cash flow problems. And we all know that the number one reason for businesses failing is cash flow. Interestingly, the number two reason for businesses failing is lack of market need. We've had a fantastic idea. We don't research it to make sure that there is market demand, and we launch it and it fails and it costs us money. So when you have a fantastic idea for a new product or a new service, go out and talk to people and make sure that there really is market demand for what you want. Ignoring customer perception. This sort of comes back, Richard, to what you were talking about. All estate agents are the same. They all do the same thing. None of them are any better or worse than the others. I suspect, it's unfair, but I suspect it's something that you hear people say. I find it all the time. Oh, bloody business coaches, they're all over the place. And I go, yeah, maybe they are, but find me another one who focuses on small and micro businesses, because that is my experience. That's what I know. I've been there, I've done it, I've done things well, I've done things badly. And that's what I'm sharing with you. So this perception of the market, and the perception of what our market, of what we represent to our external world, it comes back to how we represent ourselves as brands and the marketing that we do to evidence our credibility. But if the perception in your market is that everybody does the same thing, your marketing communications, the conversations, the dialogues that you have with your clients and prospective clients are the places where you have the opportunity to challenge that perception that they have. So your price needs to reflect your business vision and goals, and your price has to reflect your financial resources. Your business vision, your business goals will be intrinsically tied into your financial resources. You will have your big picture business objectives, and then within that you will have objectives around money, around maybe social impact. You will have you'll have done your HR and your people planning, so that you understand what your company needs, what resources your company needs to achieve the vision and goals that you have set for yourself. If you're not doing this, you run the risk of making decisions, really, really crucial decisions around pricing, that could take you into a very bad place. Any questions on any of that? Any comments anyone would like to share? No? Okay, I'm going to move swiftly on then, because we've got 10 more minutes. So, build price credibility. We've talked about this a lot, but I'm going to just go back through it very quickly. I think by now you will understand where I am coming from in believe in your own value. If you are a startup, this thing about transparency and trust and stories and testimonials can be much harder to evidence because you haven't yet got clients who will say, oh, I worked with Richard when I sold my house and he was absolutely amazing. I worked with Sophie when I wanted to, get a bit fishy and I get a bit healthier and look at me now. Whatever it is that you want to evidence to your clients as the outcomes you can get for them. The further down the line we are in terms of our business, the easier it is for us to do that because we can get people to talk about us. We can get people to put recommendations on LinkedIn for us or Facebook or Google reviews or whichever, marketing comms we decide to use. When you're starting out, that's much harder. So you need to come back to this assessment of what am I great at? And you need to be really honest. Is it my experience? Is it my training? Is it my qualification? Is it my, the years I have spent working in this market? And they're the things that you need to shout about. Transparency is really, really important. Telling people we can do something that we can't is a dangerous place to go. I think it was, was it Richard Branson? Somebody like Richard Branson sort of says, if somebody asks you if you could do something, say yes, and then go away and learn how to do it. I think that only works up to a point. I think it's also quite a dangerous way of doing things if you do not have the resources around you to be able to learn how to do it, or if you cannot bring those resources in to ensure that you can get things right. You are much, much better off saying no. I think it was John who said that there's, these 80% of people you don't work with, you pass them on to somebody else. It's a really good idea because you're still seen as being helpful. I do the same. If I decide for whatever reason somebody's not the right person for me to work with, I've got effectively competitors of mine who I will refer business to because I think they're a better fit for whatever reason. And linking price to outcomes and not hours. We've talked about that several times now. Any questions on building price credibility? Any comments? No? Okay. So, key takeaways. Understand what your market wants, understand your market need, understand why they're buying. Functional, emotional, aspirational. What need are you meeting for them? Do they align with what you want for your business? And if they don't work with them. They are not your target market. Clarify your value, understand what differentiates you from your competition. Choose a pricing model that is acceptable to your market. Don't stick with just one. If you have the option to use more than one and bring in more business, go with it. Don't get tied into doing things that, I speak to people and sort of say, why do you do this and why do you do that? And they say, because we've always done it. And that's a really terrible reason for doing something. Be that sort of that critical friend to yourself, or have people in your network who you trust to be a critical friend to you. Build customer loyalty, communicate confidently and with credibility. So if you can't do something, don't say you can, you'll just end up looking silly, and review regularly. I'm going to leave you looking at that just for 1 second. Excuse my Zoom face, because I just want to find a business model that I want you to look at that I think you will find helpful. Hang on. So you keep looking at that, and excuse me, I am now doing something completely different. If I can find it now, I'm going to have to stop sharing. Excuse me for 1 second.
I was going to ask a question as well, but I'll wait for you to find what you're looking for.
Let me see. I don't know if I can multitask, and I'll find a document and answer a question at the same time.
Yeah, I said I'd wait for you. So when you're done.
Okay. Where's my share? Right, ask a question.
Yeah. So what do you think about having different value products within a portfolio, for instance? So there's a client I'm working with on a growth strategy, and she has different products that she sells within her business. They're all services products, but some of them are low margin products, but she can do them, and she knows she can get to, 10 at once kind of thing really easily. And the other high value products are more difficult to go for. So I'm trying to work out that sort of commercial strategy for her so that she knows that, okay, on a certain week, if I haven't got any of the high value ones, I can just go for these low value ones. So at least I'm getting something in. But earlier you were saying, sort of trusting the bigger pieces and of work and trying to sell those bigger pieces. So what do you think about that from a strategy perspective?
It all depends on the value of the bigger piece as well. Most of us will have different packages that we offer to people. I did a piece of work a number of years ago with somebody who she was helping people with powers of attorney, will, end of life planning effectively, but also reducing risk, so helping people do lasting power of attorney, writing their wills, getting the right bit of tax planning for around trust and all those sorts of things. And we went through it item by item by item, and we worked out, I asked her, if you do this, how many hours does it take? How much do you charge? If you do that, how many hours does it take? How much do you charge? If you do that, how many hours, how much does it charge? And the thing that the sort of top of the range thing that she thought was the most value to her actually wasn't, because we took it all then back down to hourly rates. And actually it was the mid-tier package that she was offering that was best for her in terms of her pricing productivity.
Yeah.
And so she then had to make a decision about, do I put the price up for that all singing, all dancing package, or do actually I just put it down my list of things that I want to do, because I know that the mid-level is the one that is best for my business. If there is a greater demand for the top level that she was doing, you go, okay, fine, in that case you've got to test putting your prices up. And we can have different products or services that meet different markets. It's the point that Sophie was making, that she does both one-to-one support, and she also does corporate support, and there will be really different pricing strategies in place for both of those markets. So I would suggest that you need to take the same approach. It's interesting though, because of course then you need a different marketing strategy for each one of them. You need potentially different training for the people within your team who are dealing with this product rather than that product, and this, I'm down in Brighton. American Express are based down here, and they're constantly recruiting customer service people, and they have the people who will talk to someone who's got the basic card, and then they've got the people who'll be trained in a different way who are dealing with the mid-level Amex card, and then they've got the people who are dealing with the black card holders who have to be they're concierges. They are not customer service advisors. And if we are looking at products or services and we're selling them at different price points for different markets, we need to make sure that our internal resources reflect all of that. But very, very quickly, because I've got 1 minute left, I will send this to you. This is not mine. This was produced by an American management consultancy called Bain & Co. And what it did, it looked at the things that people, the values that people associate to what they are buying. And it said that the further up this pyramid we can go, the more impact we make with people. But at a most basic level, at a functional level, we have to be able to evidence that we save time, we simplify, we make money, we reduce risk, we reduce effort, we avoid hassle, etc., etc., etc. We have to tick a number of those boxes. Then we move up and we look at the emotional things that people will buy on. And it's around, do we reward people? Do we reduce anxiety? Is it around wellness, therapeutic value? It then goes up again to what Bain call life-changing. So is it around providing hope for people, affiliation and belonging, motivation, etc., etc., etc. And then finally, the social impact that we have. There is a digital version of this which goes into much more detail. It's very corporate, it's very American, but given that I've given you a 30-second explanation of this, I think you'll find it helpful. So I'll send both of these to Forbes with the deck. Yeah, I'll send Bain's Pyramid, and I'll send the digital version that will give you more understanding. But I would just say to you, go and have a look at it and ask yourself the question, where do I bring value to my clients? And how can I bring even more? I think somebody put their hand up very briefly while I was doing all of that. It might have been John, but I think he's gone. But Forbes, over to you, because we've run out of time, haven't we?
We have.
As I always do.
Yeah, no, I think John had put his hand up saying he has to scoot out the door, and yeah, we've reached the magic 11:30. Thank you so much again, Sandra, and I think I really appreciate it. It's lovely hearing people's questions and going on regarding this. We will be sharing the slides, and this has been recorded. So in the next week or two, we can send you the link, and by the end of the course, you'll be able to see all of these sessions to play to your heart's content if there's a bit which you've missed. And I'll single him out to a degree with Richard, because Richard has done the Go Productive course before, but as he readily recognised, you can do something the first time and pick up something afresh the second time. So I think Richard is a great model for kind of learning and to keep revisiting these things, because we don't always get it right the first time. Sandra, thank you so much. Our next session will be next Monday. I will send out fresh Zoom links, and this will be with Richard Padden, and this is going to be about how do you target your right audience. So much, it's really trying to finalize that and sharpen our brains as to who we are talking to, as we do in our chamber office all the time, because otherwise it could be an incredible scattergun approach. So thank you so much for your time. Lovely to see you. Have a good week, and we'll catch up next Monday. But thank you again. Thank you, Sandra.
Thanks, Sandra. Thanks, Sandra. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sean.